안녕하세요. You are going to learn how to make question sentences using how in this lesson. Let's go. Okay, let's learn how to make a question using how. We use how to ask about a particular way or a detail in which something happens or is done in any language. Of course, the same thing applies to Korean, but it's a little bit tricky to learn how to use how compared to the other interrogatives in Korean. It's not because it's hard to make a question using how, but it's mainly because it's hard to translate an English sentence using how into Korean. Sometimes we need to use another way to mean what an English sentence means in Korean. That's it. So don't worry too much about it. Just follow our lead. Let's go. What is the most frequently asked question using how in English? Yes, how are you? How are you doing? How is it going? How do you do? Or how much is it? These questions are the good examples of what we've been talking about, the questions using how. We can't use the direct translation of them. We might have to change the sentence completely to mean the same thing in Korean, or change the verbs, at least. Maybe it's gonna be easier than we thought. Let's start learning. There are three major translations for how in Korean. Let's take a look at the first sentence. How did you do that? In this kind of sentence, we use 어떻게. 어떻게. You know why it sounds like this, don't you? We explained about this several times, even in this lesson. It's not 어떻게. It's 어떻게. Okay? Let's take a look at the next sentence. How long are you going to stay? We need to use 얼마나. 얼마나 for this kind of how. Don't worry, just take a look at it and move on. 얼마나. Please see the next one. This one looks a bit tricky. Let's take a close look at it. How was your trip? For this kind of sentence, we need to use the predicate 어떠하다. 어떠하다. Remember, this is a predicate. It's actually an adjective in the Korean grammar. Anyway, we are going to use this to end the sentence. The first and the second how was an interrogative adverb. But this one is strangely an adjective, and you are going to use it as a predicate to end the sentence. Don't worry, we'll learn about this more specifically in this lesson. So, we're gonna learn about the first and the third one in this lesson, and we will learn about the second one later again. Okay, then let's make the very first question using how. How did you do that? This one sounds useful. Let's take a look at the English sentence first together. We can see how, which is the major word we are going to learn in this lesson, and auxiliary verb did makes the sentence past tense and interrogative in English. But we already know we don't need something like this in Korean. We can see the subject you here. We assume that it will also be useless as usual. And main verb do, and an object that. We've seen the verb do and the pronoun that quite often in our lesson, so you already know how to use them. Let's rearrange the words right away without any hesitation. Let's just put the subject you first, even though we know it's useless, and let's put the verb did at the end of the sentence, and put the object that right before the verb do. Then where should we put how in this sentence? Let's see the grammar section at the bottom. We already know that the translation of how is 어떻게. 어떻게. When you want to ask about the way or the method in which something happens or is done, you use 어떻게. 어떻게. So when you want to ask how to cook, how to go, how to eat, and etc., you use 어떻게. Of course, you can use 어떻게 with an adjective, but because of this usage, 어떻게 is normally used with a verb. Now it's getting easier, right? And the position, well, you can put it anywhere because it has the strong meaning of asking the way or method. So anyone can know that you are asking about the way or the method to do something as soon as they hear 어떻게 anywhere in the sentence. But let's put it right before the verb and say it's the best position for those who want to remember the fixed position. Why? Because 어떻게 is used to ask the way or the method, how the verb is done. So if you put 어떻게 right in front of the verb, it should not be a problem. How about the object that? An object must be directly related to the verb too. Yes, that's true, but not as close as how does. You don't have to know this right now, but sometimes an object in a Korean sentence looks like a subject when you add the auxiliary particle 은 or 는. So we can tell that the way or the method how the verb is done is closer to a verb than an object. Let's understand it that way. Okay, so let's push the object that aside and put how right before the verb. So the order is going to be you, that, how, did do, or did. You, we don't need this because you don't use the direct translation of the pronoun you in a Korean honorific sentence. That, well, the English pronoun that can be translated into two different words in Korean according to the context and the meaning. You already know that. The one is related to 그 sound and the other one is related to 저 sound. When you want to talk about something which is not present at which you are now, but you and the listener know what it is, or which is mentioned in the previous sentence, you can use 그 sound. Or when something is right in front of your eyes and you and the listener both know what it is without saying this or that pointing at it, you can use 그 sound in this situation too. The pronoun that in the sentence how did you do that is used exactly for this purpose. So we are going to use 그 sound this time. You can use 저 sound only when you want to talk about something which is over there. Something you can see, but not in a touching distance. Don't worry, we are going to wrap up all of this at the end of this lesson. Let's move on. Anyways, we are going to use 그 sound for this sentence. The direct translation of the English pronoun it or that is 그것, 그것. But Koreans don't really use 그것 in a real-life conversation. There's a colloquial form of 그것 in Korean. 그거, 그거, without the final sound. People use this colloquial form far much more. Colloquial means spoken Korean in a real-life conversation. Do you remember 그건, 그건, which is the shortened and colloquial form of 그것은, with the particle 은? As you know, the difference is 그건 contains the particle 은, and the meaning that the particle implies, but 그거 doesn't contain any particle. In this sentence, that is used as an object of the sentence, so you can't use 그건, which already contains the auxiliary particle 은. Let's use 그거 this time. You can add the object particle 를, but as we said, we don't know why, but strangely it sounds better in many cases without the subject and the object particle in a real-life conversation, unless you need to use the particle to express the exact meaning it has. But again, it is okay to use the particle 를, it's grammatically correct. Let's just not use it in this sentence, so 그거 is enough. Well, you can use 그건 too, but let's not talk about it here. Like we said, it's too complicated for you for now. Let's just use 그거, 그거, no problem. You can use 저것, 저것, that you use to indicate something which is not in a touching distance for the English pronoun that. It's your choice. The colloquial form of 저것 is 저거, 저거. How, 어떻게, 어떻게. Did, the past tense of the verb do. We already know what's the past tense form of the verb do in Korean, but let's take a look at it together again because we've never actually seen this before. The basic form of the verb do in Korean is 하다, 하다, as you already know very well. The stem is 하, and the vowel 아 is the yang vowel. Therefore, we need to add 아요 sound with the same yang vowel to combine it with the suffix 요. So it was supposed to be 하아요, But according to the sound economic principle, this ah sound should be gone and become 하요, 하요. But the scholar said that there is 이 vowel was hidden in this verb. Therefore, 어요 should be added and not 아요. So it's actually 하 plus 이 vowel plus 어요. This 이 vowel cannot survive alone. So 이 vowel and 어 sound had to combine. 이어, 이어, 여, 여. It becomes 여 sound. So 하여요, 하여요 is correct too grammatically. Yes, I know your jaw has dropped now. Surprising, isn't it? But people wanted to make it shorter, so they decide to combine 하 and 여 sound again. 하여, 하여. 하여 becomes 해 sound. Well, no matter how fast you spit out 하 and 여, they don't make 해 sound technically. We know, but it's not mathematics. Anyway, it becomes 해 sound. That's how it became 해요, 해요. We've been using this 해요 sound so far, right? Now you know the entire history of 해요. If it's too complicated for you, you just remember 해요 sound. You don't have to know why it became 해요. Nobody really uses 하여요 in modern Korean anyway. Then how we turn it into the past tense? When there is not final consonant in the last letter of the stem, you put 쌍시옷, double s consonant, to the final of the last letter of the stem and add 어요 sound. That's how the past tense of the do verb became 했어요, 했어요. Now you finally resolved the long overdue question. So that, 그거, how, 어떻게, did, 했어요? 그거 어떻게 했어요? Wow, 그거 어떻게 했어요? You can make the higher respect from yourself. 그거 어떻게 하셨어요? 그거 어떻게 하셨어요? Perfect. Let's see the next sentence. How was your trip? This is the sentence that is asking someone whether something was successful or enjoyable. How was it? How was the Korean food you had this afternoon? How was your date last night, right? When you ask someone whether something was successful or enjoyable in Korean, you use how as a predicate, actually an adjective in Korean grammar. What is the predicate that you're going to use then? Let's take a look at it together. The basic form is 어떠하다, 어떠하다. It sounds kind of similar to 어떻게 with the same 어떠 sound, doesn't it? Yes, you're right, but it's an adjective and you're gonna use it to end the sentence. Furthermore, you have to change it a lot if you want to use it in a real-life conversation. Let's see how to change it together then. We know we need to add 요 sound to use it in a real-life conversation. It looks like the stem of the word 어떠하다 is 어떠하. The last letter of the stem is 하. So we're supposed to add 아요 sound. Wait a minute, this predicate ends in 하다. We just learned how this 하다 sound becomes 해요 when it combines with the 요, right? The same thing applies here. So 어떠하다 is actually 어떠하 plus 이 vowel plus 어요. So it becomes 어떠하여요. 어떠하여요. And again, it becomes the shorter form 어떠해요. 어떠해요. But there is one more step for this predicate, actually an adjective. You can make even shorter form. 떠 and 해 sound from 어떠해요. Combine one more time and it becomes 때 sound. 때. 때. Well, you might think that combining 떠 and 해 sound won't naturally make 때 sound. We can accept that. But let's just force to think it becomes 때 sound. It kind of does. 떠해, 돼, 돼. Anyway, it's better than just memorizing it without any logic. So, 어때요, not 어떠해요. 어때요 is most optimal form you can use anywhere. We explained how it became 어때요 because we wanted you to know the principle so that you won't forget easily. But maybe you don't have to know all this. What you have to remember is just when we ask someone whether something was successful or enjoyable in Korean, we use 어때요, 어때요, and it's the translation of the English interrogative adverb how, but it's actually an adjective predicate in Korean. So you normally position it at the end of the sentence anyway. Okay? Very good. Okay, then let's take a look how to make the higher respect form. The very basic form of the higher respect form of 어떠하다 is 어떠하시다. 어떠하시다. The stem is 어떠하시. Since the last letter of the stem 시 has the neutral vowel e, sound should be added to be combined with the suffix 요. 어떠하시어요. But again, because the last letter of the stem 시 doesn't have a final consonant, 시 sound should be combined with sound. So it becomes 어떠하셔요 rather than 어떠하시어요. If you use 어떠하셔요, native Korean totally understand what you're talking about. Maybe it was the correct form a long time ago. We don't know who did, but anyway, people decided to get rid of this 하 sound from 어떠하셔요 to make it shorter. You don't need to know this, but maybe because people think 어떠 part is good enough to be the stem, which has the strong meaning of asking how. So they got rid of the 하 sound and add only 쉬어요 or 세요 sound. So it becomes 어떠셔요 without 하 sound. 어떠셔요 or 어떠세요 would be fine too. 어떠세요 is used more commonly in a real-life conversation, as you expected, but it's not conjugated based on the principle. Then how do you have to position the words in a Korean sentence? What's the subject? Your trip, right? Be verb here is useless as usual. Let's just put the be verb and interrogative how at the end of the sentence together because we are going to use it as a predicate in a Korean sentence. So it's simply going to be your trip was how. Your trip. You don't need to translate the possessive your. Trip is 여행. 여행 in Korean. Yes, you can add a particle e or 은 if you want. Just one tip. When you ask if something was successful or enjoyable, it sounds better with a particle 은 or 는. Maybe it's because you are asking whether it was successful or enjoyable or not. As you feel the nuance from the English word whether, this Korean adjective 어떠하다 goes better with the nuance of comparing or contrasting that the auxiliary particle 은 or 는 provides. If you don't buy it, just don't add any particle. Just use 여행 only. It's okay. How? 어때요? 어때요 is the present simple form of how as a predicate. 어땠어요? 어땠어요 should be the past form then. 여행 어땠어요? 여행은 어땠어요? How was your trip? Now you can make any sentence using 어때요, right? Let's learn more about it together, don't worry. How about the higher respect form? The higher respect form of 어때요 is 어떠셔요 or 어떠세요. And the past form is 어떠셨어요. You cannot use 어떠세요 in the past tense like 어떠셨어요. 어떠셨어요 is completely wrong. 어떠셨어요, 어떠셨어요 is correct, right? Okay? 여행 어떠셨어요? 여행 어떠셨어요? 여행은 어떠셨어요? How was your trip? Okay, then let's see these sentences. How are you? How are you doing? How is it going? They have basically the same meaning. We told you something like this in lesson 2 that we can't use the direct translation of these sentences in Korean. We use 안녕하세요 instead. It's the renowned Korean greeting. Everybody knows 안녕하세요. Koreans use 안녕 or 안녕하세요 for hi or hello, but you can also use it as how are you. And we already told you why in lesson 2. Because 안녕하세요 originally a question which has the meaning of are you fine with the adjective 안녕하다, which means to be fine. There is another way to say how are you in Korea. The meaning of it is a bit closer to how are you doing or how is it going as well as how are you. It's also quite commonly used, so take a good look at it. Let's see which verb we use in Korean first. 지내다, 지내다. This verb 지내다 means to live or to spend time or to be with someone as something such as partners, friends, or husband and wife. Let's learn about this verb later again. Anyway, you can use this verb to say how are you doing or how have you been doing in Korean. So put the subject you first and put how and put the verb 지내다 at the end. We don't need the pronoun you, therefore just say how and the verb 지내다. Which one should we use to add the suffix 요? 아요 or 어요? The last letter of the stem 네 has 에 vowel. 아요 is added only when the vowel of the last letter of the stem has 아 or 오 vowel. We use 어요 for the rest of the vowels. 지내어요, 지내어요. But 네 sound is supposed to combine with the sound since it has no final consonant. Imagine 에 vowel and vowel put together and make a one vowel. So vowel must be offset by 에 vowel. So it becomes just 네 sound. So 지내요 is correct rather than 지내어요. 지내요. 지내요. Okay? How? 어떻게? And the verb 지내요. 어떻게 지내요? 어떻게 지내요? It means almost the same as how are you doing. How are you doing? 어떻게 지내요? If you put an adverb well in the position of how, it means are you doing well? Well is 잘. 잘 in Korean. So 잘 지내요? Are you doing well? How about how have you been doing? You just need to turn the verb 지내요 part into the past tense. We used present perfect continuous in English, but in Korean, you can use past tense to mean present perfect or present perfect continuous. You can convert the sentence into the form that looks like English present perfect continuous in Korean too. But let's talk about this more specifically later again. This time, we just turn the verb part into the past tense. 네 doesn't have any final. Therefore, let's add double s consonant and add 어요. 지냈어요. 지냈어요. So, how? 어떻게? Lived or spent time. 지냈어요? 어떻게 지냈어요? 어떻게 지냈어요? Which actually means the English sentence, how have you been doing? How about the higher respect form? The higher respect form in the present simple tense was 어떻게 지내셔요? 어떻게 지내셔요? Then the past form is 어떻게 지내셨어요? 어떻게 지내셨어요? You cannot use 새 sound in the past tense. Therefore, 지내셨어요, 지내셨어요 is completely wrong. Okay, now you can say all the how are you or how have you been sort of greetings and questions in Korean. Let's see the next sentence. How much is it? 얼마예요? You can see 얼마. What is 얼마? And you can also see 예요. We've seen this 예요 a lot of times. Yes, this is the same 예요 that we've been learning and using. We are not going to explain about this here. Well, there's nothing to explain actually. You can just remember the entire 얼마예요. 얼마 is maybe one of the different forms of how, especially when you want to know the amount, the degree, or the extent. Let's talk about this later again. Plus, if you want to use 얼마예요, you should also know how to count numbers in Korean. Anyway, it's 얼마예요. 얼마예요? How much is it? How about how do you do? As you assumed, Koreans don't use this greeting. Maybe Koreans use nice to meet you instead of how do you do. From time to time, we'll learn about this next time. Let's take a look at a couple more examples and finish this lesson. Let's see the English sentence first. How do I eat this? Can you turn it into Korean? You've already learned the principle, so you can do that. Just stop the video and do it yourself first. Done? Okay, let's take a look at it together. How do I eat this? First of all, the speaker is asking about the way or the method. Therefore, you should use 어떻게, right? The subject I comes first. We don't need the auxiliary verb do in a Korean sentence. Put the object this. It's okay, just do it first and check it if it's right later. And then put how and then the verb eat, which is in the present simple tense. I, this, how, eat. If it's still weird to see the words in this order, keep practicing. If it's too difficult, just think this way. When we speak English, we just need to spit out the subject and then the verb right after it automatically because it's English. Then it will become a lot easier to make the rest of the sentence. The same thing applies in Korea, but Korean is much more flexible than English. When you speak Korean, in most of the cases, it is totally okay to omit the subject. Therefore, you should find time-related words first, and then the place, and then object or the major activity, and then the verb. So when you speak Korean, if you can't find a word to start, just start with the time-related words like today, 오늘, yesterday, 어제, or tomorrow, 내일, and then the place like 집에서 or 집에, 한국에, 한국에서. You can put interrogative anywhere you want actually. Interrogatives has a strong meaning in it, so everybody knows what it is wherever you put it. The position we taught you was the one where it seems to be the best. And the sentence ends in the tense part and the predicative part such as a verb or an adjective. It's just a small tip. Let's get back to the sentence. I, this, how, eat. I. Yes, you can start with the actual subject I in this sentence, but it's also okay to omit it. Korean normally omit I or you, especially when the subject I and the listener you know I am now talking about I or you. When you want to emphasize the subject I, you can start with the I. How do I eat this? How the hell do I eat this? We don't know if the speaker wants to emphasize the subject here, so let's get rid of the subject this time. This. This is 이것. 이것 in Korean. We've seen this several times, but as we don't really use 그것 or 저것 in a real-life conversation, we don't really use the original full translation 이것 either. Koreans use the colloquial form 이거. 이거. So remember this. 이거. 이거. How. 어떻게. 어떻게. Eat. 먹어요. 먹어요. 이거 어떻게 먹어요? 이거 어떻게 먹어요? How do I eat this? If you add the subject I and the particle 가, 제가 이거 어떻게 먹어요? 제가 subject is emphasized with the subject particle 가. It sounds like, is it me who has to eat this? How on earth do I eat this? 제가 이거 어떻게 먹어요? Or 제가 이거를 어떻게 먹어요? Do you understand the nuance? How about 저는 이거 어떻게 먹어요? How does it sound like to you? With the auxiliary verb 는. 저는 이거 어떻게 먹어요? It sounds like there are other people in the same place and each of them has different food on their plate and is asking someone the same question. How do I eat this? When it's your turn to ask the same question, then how do I eat this? 저는 이거 어떻게 먹어요? Do you understand the nuance? Too difficult? Then you just use 이거 어떻게 먹어요? Without any particle. It's totally fine. We didn't put the higher respect form because the subject is I. You don't use a higher respect form for yourself. Let's see the next sentence. How do I get there? The verb get is used to mean to arrive, but in Korean, it is more natural to use the verb go when you ask the way or the method to get somewhere. How do I go there? So sentence structure is going to be I, there, how, go. There is a subject I here too, but you can omit it in a Korean sentence. There. There is 거기. 거기. It is used to refer to a place which has already been mentioned. You can add a particle 에 or 로, because the subject goes to a certain place and you use the particle 에 or 로 for the place of the destination. The particle 로 sounds more like the English preposition toward, which is used to indicate the direction of the movement. How, 어떻게, go. It's in the present simple tense, therefore it's 가요. 거기 어떻게 가요? 거기에 어떻게 가요? 거기로 어떻게 가요? Again, it would sound super awkward if you use a higher respect form when the subject is I. Then let's say, how did you come here? The subject you comes first, and then here comes, and then how, and then the verb came at the end. You, here, how, came, here, 여기. 여기 is the place where you are now. Yes, you can add a particle 로 or 에 to 여기. 여기 or 거기 is a noun in Korean. How, 어떻게. Came, it's in the past tense. The basic form of the verb come is 오다. The vowel used for the stem is O vowel, but since O doesn't have any final consonant, its sound has to combine with A sound of 아요, 오아, 와, 와. It becomes 와. Therefore, the present simple tense form is 와요, not 오아요, okay? And then past tense form is 왔어요, not 오왔어요, okay? So, 여기 어떻게 왔어요? 여기로 어떻게 왔어요? 여기에 어떻게 왔어요? 여기 어떻게 왔어요? If you don't know the exact usage of the particles, just don't use it. 여기 어떻게 왔어요? It's good enough. Since the subject is you, it seems okay to make a higher respect form of the sentence. We just need to change the verb part. The higher respect form of the verb 오다 is 오시다. It's 오셔요 in the present simple tense, not 오시어요, okay? You know why. And it becomes 오셨어요. 오셨어요 in past tense. 여기 어떻게 오셨어요? 여기 어떻게 오셨어요? Perfect. Okay then, let's make a sentence to ask someone whether something is successful or enjoyable or someone is fine. We already know we use the predicate adjective 어떠하다 to ask someone whether something is successful or enjoyable or someone is fine. And we already learned how the very basic form 어떠하다 becomes 어때요 in this lesson. The very basic form, the higher respect form of 어떠하다 is 어떠하시다. 어떠하시다. The stem is 어떠하시. Since the last letter of the stem 시 has the neutral vowel e, sound should be added to be combined with the suffix 요. 어떠하시어요. But again, because the last letter of the stem 시 doesn't have a final consonant, 시 sound should be combined with sound. So it becomes 어떠하셔요 rather than 어떠하시어요. If you use 어떠하셔요, native Korean totally understand what you're talking about. Maybe it was the correct form a long time ago. We don't know who did, but anyway, people decided to get rid of this 하 sound from 어떠하셔요 to make it shorter. You don't need to know this, but maybe because people think 어떠 part is good enough to be the stem, which has the strong meaning of asking how. So they got rid of the 하 sound and add only 쉬어요 or 세요 sound. So it becomes 어떠셔요 without 하 sound. 어떠셔요 or 어떠세요 would be fine too. 어떠세요 is used more commonly in a real life conversation. Let's get back to the sentence. How is your mother? Your mother is the subject and how has to be a predicate in a Korean sentence. We need only these two in this sentence. You don't even have to think about the normal honorific form of this sentence because we always have to use a higher respect form when we talk about someone else's mother or about my own mother. Mother is 어머니. 어머니. We don't need the possessive your. We don't really use the pronoun you or your in an honorific sentence because it can sound offensive. If you want to know how to refer to or call somebody in a sentence, please check out Lesson 5 Part 1 and Lesson 4 Part 1. How? 어떠셔요? Or 어떠세요? 어머니 어떠셔요? 어머니 어떠세요? Is your mother doing well? 어머니 잘 지내세요? Right? Yes, you can add a particle 는 if you want to give the nuance of comparing or changing the subject. 어머니는 어떠세요? 어머니는 어떠세요? How about the particle 가? 어머니가 어떠세요? No matter what other people say, we would not say it's wrong, but it sounds a bit weird because of many reasons. There's no reason to emphasize the subject here. It is nothing to do with the new information either. Can't find any particular purpose to use the subject particle 가. As we always say, if you don't understand the usage of the subject or the object particle, just don't use it. It's okay in most of the cases. How about 께서, which is the higher respect form of the subject particle? Yes, you can use it, but as it doesn't sound so natural with the normal subject particle 이 or 가, it doesn't really sound natural only with the higher respect subject particle 께서. You better add the auxiliary particle 는 to 께서 to make it sound natural. 어머니께서는 어떠세요? 어머니께서는 어떠세요? Okay, let's move on to the next sentence. How was your class? In this sentence, your class is the subject, which is not a human. Keep that in mind. And we will use how as a predicate. Class is 수업, 수업, which means a course of teaching. Was how. It's in the past tense, Therefore, we should add double s consonant to 어때 and add 어요. 어땠어요? 어땠어요? 수업 어땠어요? Yes, you can add a particle e or 은 to change the nuance for the particular purpose. 수업이 어땠어요? 수업은 어땠어요? They are all fine. If you are not sure about the usage, just get rid of the particle and say 수업 어땠어요? 수업 어땠어요? How was the class? It's totally fine. Okay, let's take a look at the colloquial forms that we've learned in lesson 5 one more time. And unearthing nouns that you can make with the same letter before we finish this lesson. Let's take a look at the pronoun this first. The direct translation or the original form is 이것. 이것 is used to indicate something which you can see and is in a touching distance. The colloquial form of 이것 is 이거, 이거, which is used more commonly in a real-life conversation. If you add the auxiliary particle 은 or 는, it becomes 이건, 이건. It's the colloquial form of 이거는 or 이것은. If you add a subject particle 이 or 가, it becomes 이게, 이게. It's the colloquial form of 이거가 or 이것이. If you add the object particle 을 or 를, it becomes 이걸, 이걸. It's the colloquial and shortened form of 이거를 or 이것을. Okay? Next. That. The original translation of that is 저것. 저것. 저것 is used when you indicate something which you can see right now but is not in a touching distance. The colloquial form is 저거. 저거. If you add a particle 은 or 는, it becomes 저건, 저건. If you add a subject particle 이 or 가, it becomes 저게, 저게. If you add the object particle 을 or 를, it becomes 저걸, 저걸. It's the colloquial or shortened form of 저거를 or 저것을. Okay? Next. The pronoun it or sometimes that. The original translation is 그것, 그것. The colloquial form is 그거, 그거. 그거 is used when you refer to something which was in the previous sentence or something you and the listener already know what it is, so that you don't have to point it saying this or that. If you add the auxiliary particle 은 or 는, it becomes 그건, 그건. With the subject particle 이 or 가, it becomes 그게, 그게. If you add the object particle 을 or 를, it becomes 그걸, 그걸. It's the shortened or colloquial form of 그것을 or 그거를. Let's take a look at the subject pronoun I. What is the original translation of I? 저, 저. Okay? If you add a particle 는, it becomes 저는, but it becomes even shorter in a real-life conversation. 전, 전. If you add a subject particle 가, it becomes 제가, 제가. It's not 저가, okay? Please keep that in mind. If you add the object particle 을 or 를, it becomes 저를, but it becomes even shorter in conversational Korean. 절, 절. How about the possessive my? The original form is 저의, 저의 with the particle 의. But in the colloquial form, this 의 sound is gone and it becomes 제, 제. Okay? Very good. Then let's see the higher respect nouns that has a common part. That person. When you refer to a person who looks a bit older and is total stranger to you, or whom you don't know very well, you can use the higher respect form of the noun person. So that person is originally 그 사람 in a normal sentence, but it becomes 그분, and it sounds more polite. That man is 그 남자분. That woman is 그 여자분. That friend is 그 친구분. But it's not like you can add 분 to any noun. Therefore, you just remember these four for now, okay? Then let's see the words which use 님 sound to make it sound more polite. The original translation of teacher is 선생. But if you add 님 sound to it, you can make it sound more polite. 선생님. Professor is 교수. If your friend is a professor, you can call him or her 교수. It's okay because that professor is a friend of yours. He or she might be about of your age or younger. But if you're a student, you should add 님 to 교수 to sound polite. 교수님. If you call your professor just 교수, he or she will hate you for the rest of your life. Because of this unnerving language thing, Koreans are very sensitive about it. Team manager is 팀장 originally. Please add 님 sound when you call your team manager in front of his or her face. 팀장님. Parents or parent, the original translation is 부모. But you better use 부모님, not to look like a bastard. This 님 sound can be added to a name. It sounds more respectful than 씨. And it's normally used when a customer is called in a bank, a restaurant, or something. 권지용님, 배수지님. Okay? That's great. Well, I wouldn't leave out the last name when I add 님 to a name. Well, it's okay, but I wouldn't do that anyway. Sounds weird to me. If the situation is formal enough to use 님, the last name shouldn't be taken out. That's what I think. Okay, this is the end of Lesson 5 Part 4. We'll make Lesson 5 Part 5 and 6 since there are still things to learn about question forms. Okay, then see you in Lesson 5 Part 5. 안녕히 계세요. Lesson 5 Part 5에서 만나요. Bye bye. This is the end of YouTube Lesson 5 Part 10. You're going to learn how to make question sentences using which and what plus noun in the next lesson. 다음 비디오에서 만나요. 안녕히 계세요.